I knew it would sting. I just didn't think it'd start like this, with a gate that wouldn't open. I stood outside the Roth estate, jacket stiff from the cold, holding a gold-wrapped box that felt heavier than it should have. Laughter drifted from the garden, soft music floated through the hedges, and the glow from the string lights made everything inside look like it was dipped in a dream. Name? James Morrison. I'm the bride's cousin. A pause. Flip of a clipboard. Sorry. You're not on the list. I didn't argue. I just stood there, watching guests file in, one after the other, heels clicking, champagne flutes clinking, fake hellos and plastic kisses on the cheek. I looked past the guard and saw her. Christy. Back turned. White dress. Veil catching the breeze. Laughing with Albert and Heidi like she didn't once cry on my shoulder over boys who treated her like a joke. Like I didn't help her write her college essay while she panicked over a missed deadline. Like I wasn't the one who raised her when no one else wanted the job. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I stared at the gate like it might change its mind. Like maybe someone inside would see me and wave me in. But nobody looked. Nobody even glanced. I thought of the last time I saw her. 3 years ago, before Dave came into the picture. Before the family meetings I wasn't invited to. Before I was politely ghosted out of the group chats. Back then, she called me Jay. Now I was just James. I looked down at the box in my hands. Small. Neat. Just a picture frame inside and a letter. Nothing flashy. Nothing loud. But real. I stood there for a while. Long enough to hear the applause after the vows. Long enough to feel like the ground could have opened and swallowed me whole. I knew this day would hurt. I just didn't expect it to start with the door shutting in my face. She used to ask me if I'd walk her down the aisle if her dad didn't make it. She said I was the closest thing she had to a big brother. But I guess that version of me didn't make the guest list. Have you ever stood outside something you helped build, and realized they changed the locks? Yeah. That was me. And that's how the day started. Not with fireworks. Not with tears. Just silence. And a gate that wouldn't open. Let me ask you something. If you've ever been cut out by someone you once carried, if you've ever stood outside looking in at a life you helped shape, tell me your story in the comments. Like this video if you've felt it. Share it if you've lived it. And subscribe, because the quiet ones always have the loudest stories. The thing about being cut out isn't that they tell you to leave. It's that one day, they just stop including you. And no one says a word. It started with the will. Uncle Marty, Christy's dad, my mother's brother, passed away 3 years ago. Complications from heart surgery. Closed casket funeral. Quick and quiet. He left everything to Albert. The house. The investments. Even the lake cabin. My mother, Melanie, didn't get a cent. Not even a framed photo. And she was the one who took care of him the last 6 months. Bathed him. Fed him. Held his hand through morphine highs and middle-of-the-night confusion. I remember asking about it. Just once. Calmly. I said, was there a reason Mom wasn't mentioned in the will? The room fell silent. Then Dave, Christy's perfect new fiancé, cleared his throat and said, sometimes boundaries are necessary. Especially when people feel entitled. Entitled. That was the word. That one word put me outside the family line and locked the door behind me. After that, it was little things. A birthday party I never heard about. A group photo I wasn't tagged in. Christy posting her engagement online, me finding out from a friend, not from her. Thanksgiving came and went. No invite. Same with Christmas. And still, I tried. I sent a card on Christy's birthday. I dropped off soup when she was sick with the flu. I mailed her a book she once said reminded her of her mom. She never said thank you. But I wasn't doing it for that. I was doing it because of a promise. My mom's last night in hospice, I sat beside her, holding her hand, and she said, "Don't let them take Christy from you too." I said I wouldn't. I said I'd try. But trying doesn't matter much when no one's listening. And sometimes, silence speaks louder than hate ever could. They didn't hate me. They just wanted to forget I existed. And they were good at it. They edited me out of stories. Cropped me out of photos. Even changed the seating chart at family dinners so they never had to say, "Where's James?" It's funny how grief breaks people in different ways. Some people cry. Some people run. My family? They pretended nothing happened. Like my mom never held their hands. Like I never shared a roof with them. Like the years I spent making them laugh didn't count. But this wedding? This was different. Because this wasn't just any family gathering. This was the big one. The kind of day you circle on a calendar. The kind of moment my mom used to dream about for Christy. And they didn't even send me an email. No phone call. No text. Not even a "Hey, hope you're doing okay." Just a link to the registry. As if I was a stranger who might want to send a blender. It's strange, the way pain shifts shape. At first, I was angry. Then I was confused. And then I just got quiet. Not defeated. Just tired. Because after a while, you stop asking why. And you start wondering if you ever really belonged at all. Sometimes families don't bury you in anger. They erase you in silence. They don't scream. They just stop saying your name. And if you've ever been there, watching a place that used to feel like home turn its back on you like you were never part of the foundation, then you already know, there's nothing louder than a quiet goodbye. And that's what this wedding felt like. One final erase. Signed, sealed, and wrapped in lace. I didn't plan to sneak in. Honestly, I thought I'd just leave the gift at the gate and walk away. Let that be the quiet exhale to a story they clearly wanted to end. But something in me couldn't. I stood there for a long time. Watching the way the ivy curled over the garden wall. Listening to distant music I once thought I'd be dancing to. Feeling every part of me tighten, then loosen, then break. Then I saw the caterer coming up the drive. Young guy. Overloaded with trays and short on hands. I didn't say a word. I just stepped forward, picked up a box of champagne glasses, and followed him in like I belonged. Nobody stopped me. I walked through the side entrance, past the kitchen, through a narrow hallway that smelled like rosemary and roast lamb. Staff bustled around, too busy to ask questions. I kept my head down. Let the suit do the talking. Let the silence hold me. Out in the garden, the ceremony had already begun. Rows of chairs. White rose petals lining the aisle. Christy stood under an arch wrapped in silken blooms, laughing at something Albert whispered in her ear. Her veil shimmered in the sun. She looked beautiful. Older. Distant. I stayed in the back. Not in a chair. Not in a row. Just standing. Still. Silent. Invisible. They didn't see me. No one did. Not even Heidi, the maid of honor, who once sat across from me at a coffee shop crying over her engagement falling apart, swearing me to secrecy. Not even Uncle Philip, who used to call me champ and sneak me candy under the table. They were all there. Everyone. Except the people they pretended never existed. I looked down at the box in my hands. Still wrapped. Still perfect. The officiant cleared his throat. And now, let's take a moment to honor those who couldn't be with us today. The ones watching from above. The ones forever in our hearts. Everyone bowed their heads. And under my breath, I whispered, but I was just not where you wanted me. When the vows ended and the applause came, I didn't clap. I just watched. I watched Christy smile like the world had finally wrapped her in gold. I watched Dave kiss her like he was sealing something closed. And I watched myself, on the outside of it all, still holding on to something they threw away years ago. At the reception, I slipped through the crowd like fog. No one looked twice. People assumed I was with the band. Or the florist. Or maybe a cousin they forgot they had. Funny how forgetting becomes a habit. I made my way to the gift table. It sat under a string of lanterns, glowing warm and soft. Wrapped boxes stacked like trophies. Envelopes stuffed with cash cards and blessings. I walked up slowly. Set my box down. It was small. Quiet. Not flashy. Not gold-plated. Just simple paper, tied with twine. And I placed a note on top. To the Christy I used to know. Then I turned. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just enough to leave the memory behind. No one saw. No one stopped me. Because you don't chase what you never meant to notice. I thought I was done. I thought setting that box on the table would be the end of it. One small ripple in a sea of perfectly choreographed memories. But sometimes, the moments that cut the deepest come after you think the worst is over. The reception moved to the main lawn. Tables dressed in white linen. Candles flickering inside crystal holders. Everyone gathered around as the lights dimmed just enough to make the night feel like magic. Then Philip Faulkner stood up. Family friend. Real estate guy. Always wore loafers with no socks. He raised his glass with that familiar grin, the one he wore when he told stories that sounded wise until you looked at the edges. To Christy and Dave, he said. To love that grows because the people around you nurture it. To the family that shows up, not just when it's easy, but when it counts. There were polite laughs, a few clinks of glasses. Then he added. And to knowing when to keep your circle clean. Because sometimes, it's not about holding on, it's about letting go of what doesn't serve your peace. The crowd applauded. I didn't. I sat still. Back straight. Hands on my lap. A napkin twisted between my fingers like a lifeline. Christy stood up next. Her smile was bright, rehearsed. She took the mic with both hands and said, I don't even know where to begin. To Albert, for stepping up when no one else would. To Heidi, for being my other half when I couldn't find mine. To Philip, for your wisdom and jokes. And to everyone here, my people, my family, thank you for showing me what love looks like. Everyone cheered. Except me. My name never left her lips. Not even a nod. Not even a glance. And I knew, in that second, that I didn't just lose my seat at the table. I lost the part of her that used to call me family. I looked down. My napkin was twisted into a rope. Across the table, someone whispered. Isn't that Melanie's son? Then Merle Morris, a distant aunt I hadn't seen since I was 15, leaned in from the next table. What are you doing here? She asked, not unkind, just confused. I didn't answer. I just stood up. Tucked the napkin under my plate like it mattered. Took one last look at Christy, still glowing under the string lights. Then turned to leave. I didn't want to make a scene. This wasn't mine to ruin. Halfway to the exit, I felt a hand on my sleeve. I turned. Josephine Aguirre. My mom's cousin. One of the few who still sent Christmas cards, even after everyone else stopped. You okay? She asked gently. I nodded. I just wanted to drop something off. She didn't push. She just let her hand fall away, like she already knew that silence sometimes says more than an answer ever could. I walked past the dessert table. Past the photographers. Past the woman handing out sparklers for the send-off. And as I stepped through the side gate, the same way I came in, I felt the weight of everything I didn't say settle into my chest. I didn't need a chair at the table. I didn't need a toast. Or a tag. Or a thank you. I just needed her to remember who held her hand when she cried in the hallway after her mom's funeral. Who sat on the floor with her, reading bedtime stories when she refused to sleep. Who told her, over and over again, that she mattered even when the world said otherwise. But I guess, people forget. Especially when forgetting makes it easier to smile. I was already halfway home when she opened it. The box I left on the table, small, quiet, just enough to be overlooked. No one clapped when I set it down. No one paused. It just sat there, waiting. The way I used to. The reception had wound down. The sparklers were burned out. The speeches were done. The music had faded into something soft and slow. She sat at the head table, still in her dress, heels kicked off, hair pinned back with silver clips. Around her, laughter rose and fell like background noise. But something in her face had changed. Maybe it was exhaustion. Or maybe it was the silence left behind when everything you planned is finally over. She pulled the ribbon loose and peeled back the paper. Inside, a single photo. A Polaroid from 17 years ago. Christy in a red sweater, knees pulled up, sitting on my lap. We were both smiling, open, unfiltered, wide-mouthed grins. Behind us, her mother. Arms around both of us. Laughing. There was a thumbprint smudge on the corner. A little faded. But still whole. Tucked behind it, a folded letter. She opened it. Slowly. And read. I don't blame you for outgrowing the version of me they told you I was. But I hope you remember who tucked you in. Who made you laugh when no one else could. And who never stopped rooting for you, even from the other side of the fence. Congratulations, Christy. I hope your new chapter begins with truth. James. The table fell quiet. Albert looked over her shoulder. Stiffened. Dave leaned in, red over her arm. His jaw tensed. But Christy. She didn't speak. She just stared at the photo. Traced her fingers over the edge of it like it was something ancient and fragile. Then folded the letter back along the crease, exactly how I had folded it, and whispered, barely loud enough for anyone to hear, I forgot, that was all she said. Not I'm sorry. Not I didn't know. Just. I forgot. And maybe that was the part that cut the deepest. Because forgetting someone doesn't happen all at once. It happens quietly. When you stop mentioning their name. When you stop picturing their face. When you start rewriting your past to make your present feel prettier. But memories are stubborn things. They live in Polaroids. In bedtime stories. In the echo of laughter you swore you'd never hear again. And that picture? That letter? It didn't come to break her. It came to remind her. Of who she was. Of who I was. And of the space between us that didn't have to be so wide. She didn't cry. She didn't fall apart. She just sat there. Holding that box like it had weight. Real weight. The kind that pulls on you from the inside out. And for once, nobody said a word. Not Albert. Not Dave. Not even Heidi, who always had something clever to add. They just watched her sit in that quiet. And that quiet said everything. The apartment was quiet when I got back. Not the kind of quiet that asks questions. Just the kind that accepts your silence and makes space for it. I hung up my coat. Set my keys in the bowl. Took the kettle off the stove and poured myself some tea. I didn't cry. Didn't punch a wall. Didn't replay what I should have said. I just sat. On the edge of the couch, fingers wrapped around the warm mug, steam rising toward a face that felt calm. Because sometimes peace doesn't show up waving a flag. Sometimes it's just the absence of weight. The first breath after holding it for years. 3 days passed. The world kept spinning, buses ran, bills came, the neighbor's dog barked like clockwork. Nothing stopped. Not even for memory. Then one morning, I opened the door to check the mail, and there it was. A single envelope. No stamp. No address. Just my name. Tucked beneath it, slipped quiet as a whisper, like whoever left it didn't want to be seen. I carried it to the table. Sat down. Opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was a photo. Christy. Still in her wedding dress. Holding the Polaroid. Tears in her eyes. A smile caught halfway between grief and something gentler. And next to it, a yellow sticky note, just 4 words, I remembered. And I'm sorry. K. I stared at it for a long time. Letting the silence wrap around me again. Not a flood of relief. Not closure tied with a bow. Just a shift. A flicker of warmth in a place I thought was long frozen. I walked to the kitchen. Pinned the photo to the fridge. Right next to an old grocery list my mom once scribbled on the back of a receipt. Apples. Bread. Toothpaste. And at the bottom, in messy handwriting, call James. Tell him I love him. I didn't call Christy. Didn't text. Didn't send a heart emoji or a thank you. Some moments don't need replies. They just need to live. Later that night, I pulled out a box from under my bed. Inside were photos I hadn't looked at in years. One in particular, me and Josephine, maybe 10 years ago. Both of us at my mom's old apartment. Laughing. Eyes closed. A birthday cake between us. I slid it into an envelope. Wrote across the front, to Josephine. For being the only one who saw me. I didn't know if she'd cry, or smile, or toss it in a drawer and forget. But I knew she deserved to know that her quiet kindness mattered. Sometimes it's not the big gestures. Not the speeches or the grand apologies. It's the small acknowledgments, the ones tucked into pockets and left on fridges. The ones that whisper, I see you. I remember. You were never invisible to me. The air was colder that morning. The kind that bites a little at your fingertips, but feels honest. I walked through the park with no real destination. Just moving. Breathing. Letting the world carry on without needing to catch it. Kids ran past me, chasing kites and paper airplanes. A woman jogged by with her headphones in, mouthing the lyrics to a song only she could hear. The carousel turned in slow circles, half full, playing a tune that made me smile even though I didn't want to. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. Not because the world suddenly remembered me. Not because my name was said out loud at a table full of people. But because someone saw me. One person. And sometimes, that's all it takes. They said I didn't belong. But maybe belonging isn't about blood, or seats at a table. Maybe it's about memory. And the weight of being remembered. My mom used to say, some people will only love the version of you that makes their life easier. Don't shrink to fit it. Just step out, and let them learn how to miss you. And she was right. So here's to the ones who were cut out, stepped on, or erased. The ones who showed up anyway. The ones who held the door open even when it was never opened for them. Don't yell. Don't beg. Don't grovel. Just hand them your truth wrapped in grace, and walk away. Not bitter. Not broken. Just free. I stopped by the corner mailbox on 5th and Grant. The one that sticks a little when you pull the handle. I slid a letter inside. No return address. No big gesture. Just a few words. For someone who once made me feel seen. Then I let the flap fall shut. And I smiled. Not because everything was fixed. But because I was done carrying what didn't belong to me. And with both hands in my coat pockets, I walked into the quiet morning light, knowing I left nothing behind. Not anger. Not regret. Just a story. And this time, I got to write the ending. Have you ever been shut out by the very people who were supposed to know you best? If this story spoke to you, share your moment below. Let's remind each other, even silence can be strength. And sometimes, the softest goodbye leaves the loudest echo. Like. Share. Subscribe. Because you deserve to be remembered on your own terms.